Hello everyone, hope you're all doing well. Today I want to talk to you in regards to something somewhat different, a new addition to the family of OCDs. Like we don't have enough of it. All of us human beings are dealing with OCD on a daily basis in one way or another, and that includes everybody. They may shrug it off or they deal with it differently, but everybody has some kind of OCD at some point in time. If they haven't yet, they will, don't worry. And if they have, they're ahead of the game because they're dealing with it, they're learning. And remember, when you deal with OCD, whatever kind it is, washing hand OCD, checking the door OCD, turning light off and on OCD, pedophile OCD, harm OCD, wanting to push someone over the edge of the station to when the train comes OCD, harm OCD, responsibility OCD, homosexual OCD, all kinds of OCD, whatever it is, when you deal with it through knowledge and research, and of course I have the links of many brilliant scientists and doctors and psychologists and psychotherapists, all down below these videos, which you can take a look at them. They're all on YouTube. They're brilliant doctors that you can take their advice and see their take, and helps you to bring knowledge to yourself. And all these knowledge and pondering about it and analyzing it for yourself and getting over it and deal with it makes you stronger than you've never thought you will be, because this is what life is all about. When these challenges are thrown at you, you deal with them and you become strongest than you've never thought you had it in you. And when you achieve that and go over that hurdle and things become clear to you, that how your mind functions, the tricks of your mind, that your mind is not always having your friends in this, not always your friend. The mind has its own glitches and malfunctions, and it acts as totally unrelated to you, and thoughts are not your thoughts. Thoughts are different entity, independent of you, independent system. You are you, the me is me, and thought is thought, and thought has nothing to do with you, does not describe you. You're different than thought, and thought is different than you. There are certain thoughts that you are initiating to solve something, figuring out something, calculating something, planning something, accomplishing something, designing something, producing something. These are all thoughts that are yours, and you initiate them using your consciousness and information that you find it useful to accomplish something. But there are all other kind of thoughts, intrusive thoughts, transient thoughts, pop-up thoughts. They come out of nowhere, have nothing to do with you. And I've discussed in detail what they are in the video number 8, I believe. Video number 8. If you please go back to this series in this playlist, intrusive thoughts, transient thoughts, OCD, H-OCD, negative thoughts. And there are a bunch of videos that we have numbered them. And number 8 discusses thought, where thought come from, and credibility of it, and all that what you want to know about the movement of a thought and components of your psyche in that particular segment. So I recommend to you to take a look at that. But in here, once you understand the movement of your mind and how this whole business of the psyche, the components of the psyche, the fragments of the psyche are put together, then you become the mechanic of your machine, and you become stronger than you ever thought you could be by this knowledge, by this experience that you're going through. And that's your mission. That's your calling, that you gotta figure it out, you gotta search it, research it, understand it, learn it, become knowledgeable, and then you will never be afraid of it, because then you will just know simply as it is. It's just thought. It's not you. And you gotta have nothing to do with it. Recognize it's there, let it be, focus on your life until they eventually realize there's no takers here. They'll fall by the wayside and they disappear. And whenever they appear again, you deal with them the same way. No resist, just ignore. and move on with your life. Now, let's get back to here. There's some new OCD that I want to introduce to you. Hallelujah. Another one. And that what I call, I don't think, perhaps we're coining a phrase here tonight. I don't know. I call it OCD for OCD. So OCD for H-OCD. In other words, is OCD for H-OCD is that I have to imagine it because it can be imagined. It's not because you're homosexual or you have tendency different than the sexuality that you are, whatever your sexuality is. But we're here talking about one sexuality, one gender, because that makes it easier for me to deliver it, and you guys see if it's suitable for you and ponder on it and see if it's the same, the concept is applicable to any gender. But we're talking about heterosexuals here. So OCD for H-OCD is what I have to imagine it, is that I have to imagine it because it can be imagined. It is possible to be imagined. And that's my OCD, to imagine things just because it's possible. Not because it's a H-OCD necessarily, just because I have this urge, you have this urge to imagine it. And if you understand that you're doing it for the sake of the fact that it can be imagined, then it becomes a little bit more apparent for you that it might not always be, and it could maybe not at all is H-OCD for you. It's just the OCD for H-OCD. OCD for OCD. It's like imagining OCD. Let me elaborate a little bit more. It's like, you know how it is that you're an honest person and you always want to deal with truth, as if you have this illusion that you're living in an absolute universe, that everything is precise, which is not. In this universe, we're living in a relative world. So there's a balance and there are dualities. But in your mind, in certain things like honesty, you think, oh, that's my character. Therefore, for that, you develop an OCD, an honest OCD, which is, that is your obsession to be honest. And that's why I call it honest OCD. So, honest about what can be imagined, which is the glitch of the very imaginative OCD for OCD people. And for example, your compulsion is to imagine what can be imagined. So the obsession is to be honest, and the compulsion would be to imagine anything that could possibly be imagined, possibly anything. So when you see a guy and you're not a homosexual, but you imagine everything that can possibly be imagined as far as homosexuality. Because, as we talked about on video 8, thought is one. There's only one thought. All thoughts are included in one thought. So the brain can go anywhere in any tangent as soon as it just touches the pool, the ocean of thought. And it can go anywhere. So you see a guy, your thoughts can go anywhere. Not because you're homosexual, you're heterosexual. But thought capability can go anywhere. Man, dick, ass, lips, sex, or suddenly you go to a horse, woman, car, space. It can go anywhere. Anything is possible. But because there's an H-OCD, you see a guy, then, and you have the honest OCD. So if a thought creates a tangent, an image of sexuality, or the guy's muscle, or that muscle, because you also have muscle, and you look at yourself sexual, because you love girls, and you find yourself sexual, anything you do is to attract girls. So you go to the gym, make your muscles strong. So the muscle for you has a sexual meaning that you're training it for the girls. So when you see somebody else's has same body part as you do, and you consider your body part sexual, so you see somebody else has the same body part, a muscle, you will then see that muscle as sexual because that's how you see your muscle. And then because it came into the sexual realm, then your mind can go anywhere. You can focus on it is growing. You could focus all kinds of things that are disgusting to you, but you imagine them because it's possible to be imagined. And you think if you don't, then you're not being honest. Because you're so pure, so perfectionist, and you just want to be honest because you have this thing that you have to overly prove that you're heterosexual because you're such a perfectionist. And so this whole idea that I have to be honest, and if it can be imagined, then it has to be imagined. But then you make a mistake thinking just because it's been imagined, therefore that means you're homosexual. And you create, the thought runs with it, intrusive thoughts runs with it, while all it is you're just being honest, and when something is imagined, you imagine the rest of it just because you think that's the compulsion for the honesty being the obsession. So, and that has nothing to do with any interest on your part in anything that you imagine, that can be imagined. But you say to yourself, but I just have to imagine it, for I think if I imagine it, then my compulsion is done, and this is what is missing, as this is not necessarily H-OCD, but OCD for OCD. I'm reading off of my notes a little bit because sometimes I forget what I wrote, what I said. So as I said, this got nothing to do with any interest on your part, whatever it's being imagined. You just think that you have to imagine it because you think if you imagine it, then your compulsion is done. And this is what's missing, as this is not an H-OCD, but OCD for OCD, or OCD for H-OCD, which happens to be related also, of course, to H-OCD field. Now, checking your heterosexuality, which is OCD for checking. Now, you see, OCD for honesty, OCD for checking is, again, that is in the field of H-OCD, but necessarily that is that you have this obsession for imagining whatever negative mind can imagine. That is your compulsion, which we just talked about, because you think that's honesty. So you're checking your heterosexuality all the time. It feels like I'm hiding anything if I don't imagine what can be imagined, hence not honest, which is why you have honest OCD, which is you just imagine whatever can possibly be purposely once the initial trigger is ignited. And you imagine them because you're honest and not afraid. Because honesty is your trait, and that's what you're protecting by overly trying to prove that, hey, I'm honest. It comes to mind, it pops up, I'm not afraid of it. And because I'm not homosexual, I am heterosexual, so I take it to the ends of it. You think that if not, and if this, what you're doing here that I explained, if not understood, it could make one think that he is imagining such unwanted images because he's homosexual or has homosexual tendencies, which is false, and he's imagining them because they can be imagined. That's all. That's his OCD. He imagines his negative thoughts, negative mind, imagines everything that could be imagined because that's his OCD. And this is the compulsion, and that is all. Obsession is checking my heterosexuality, and compulsion is imagine whatever negative that could be imagined. This is the negative mind at work, which means the die-hard heterosexual perfectionist wants to overdo, due to OCD conditioning, proof over proof, which is regular run-of-the-mill OCD, like checking the stove 10 times, or locking the door 3 times, or washing hand 5 times. It is simply proof over proof, same as any other OCD, that of the fact that he is the best heterosexual. It's just that OCD thing. I gotta prove everything. I gotta make sure the door is closed. I gotta make sure this. It's got nothing to do with being homosexual. It has to do with that OCD of I gotta make sure of everything. It could be anything. Now it happens to be the topic at that moment in some days is heterosexuality. I gotta make sure. It's got nothing to do with anything. Opposite of that, it has to do with his being conditioned to follow that OCD behavior. And often these things ignite even more when we are busy with things. So like these attacks happens when you're concerned about things. And usually OCD attacks you with the worst thing to you when things are concerning you in your life. For example, in whatever aspect that is concerning, work dilemma or money, goals, challenges, new decisions that you want to be making, I don't know, in your life, buying a house or buying a car or making a major decision, whatever it may be, there is a concern. And then we are then having an alarm system going off while none of the things we're concerned about has yet gone wrong or proved to be a problem. But since the brain cannot find a problem to alarm us, because that's its job, if it's nothing there, find something wrong, because that's its job, while it cannot find anything being wrong at the moment, but knows that you're concerned about something and you're stressed about something. And then it attacks you with the one thing that it knows for sure you hold dear. And that is your heterosexuality. And attacks that when there is a H-OCD case. For this is the way that it knows for sure it will bring alertness to your attention. Doesn't know what the danger is in your life, because you could be stressed about your work or anything, as we talked about. It doesn't know exactly what, nothing has gone wrong, but it knows something is concerning you, you're stressed. So it hits you hard with what the one thing that knows it gets your attention to alert you. And regardless of if they're relevant to heterosexuality or not, it simply alerts and spikes us on that front, as it knows, the brain, that we will be on the alert, which is the job of the brain, to keep us alert. So perhaps these things would be something for you to think about and consider in your knowledge about the movement of mind and the behavior of OCD. And now we got to have another family member to OCD, OCD for OCD. I'll talk to you soon.